Hello, welcome to the Apple Insider Podcast. I'm William Gallagher, coming to you from the floor of my office in England. We've ripped the place apart trying to find a leak under the floorboards, and we've only just fixed it, while you and I are joined by Wes Hilliard, who is undoubtedly coming from an immaculately tidy office, but is he coming to us over his new iPad Pro or over that ancient, long forgotten, I bet you barely remember this even existed, Apple Vision Pro? We need to find out the truth. So, Wes, hello, make me feel better. Tell me I'm wrong, that you're not in a tidier place than I am at all.
Just don't look in the closet. That's the key. My closet is actually quite confusing because it's weirdly converted from some sort of water heater storage, and now it's this oddly empty space that they hung bars to hang clothing from. I don't use that closet for clothing. It's just full of boxes. So that reminds me, I need to clean that thing out. There's probably some very nice spider friends in there. But no, okay. Tidy enough office. I cleaned it up yesterday anyway.
Not to go off the rails instantly, but what you described, in England, I would call that an airing cupboard. Do you use that term in the States at all?
No. The fact that anyone says the word cupboard out loud would be rare, even though it is a word that we can use.
Okay. So, anyway, for some reason, Apple Insider doesn't generally go down the whole cupboard, closet route, although maybe we should. Perhaps that's a topic for Apple Insider Plus. Yeah, possibly not. Especially not this time, because this time, Apple Insider Plus, which is the extended version of the podcast for subscribers, we're going to go into what sounds like a really thorny topic. I know Wes and I disagree on some of this already, but it's about the apps we choose. And rather than, specifically here's a list of all our favourite apps, it's more general than that. Apps made by Apple or third-party rivals. I mean, right now, as we are nearing WWDC, there are rumours of certain apps that will be Sherlocked, as it's called. What makes us choose an Apple app over a third-party app, or vice versa? Like I say, we have disagreements already. I'll sort Wes out later on in Apple Insider Plus. That's how it will work. But in the meantime, Wes, not even going to let you try to throw in a "we'll see" there or a challenge accepted. Instead, I'm going to move on to the very serious decision that I have made, which is this: having spent days clearing this quite small office to get to the floorboards, I have vowed I will never buy another book, another product, another anything to come into this office. Totally unrelated, there's a new Lego Apple Store set, or there could be, and I quite fancy it. Do you know about this, and are you in the market for one?
Well, this is adorable. There's this whole community of people on the internet that build Legos. They'll just go and buy, I don't know, all these miscellaneous pieces and figure out how to just make a set that doesn't exist. And then they'll include all the parts they use and then poll people until they can convince Lego to actually make it a set. It's like this whole system they have. And it's really interesting. Apple Store as a Lego set. Probably never going to happen because copyright and Apple protects everything dearly.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So maybe they could get away with calling it the fruit store or something. Yes. Use one of those odd things, kind of like how anime does Whackdonald's instead of McDonald's.
Didn't the Simpsons had the Maple store or something like that? Mm-hmm. I remember that one. Right. Yeah. But that would ruin it, because one of the things, you look at the set, the pictures of it, and we'll have it in the chapter artwork. You can kind of work out where most of it comes from. It's even I, as a non-real Lego user, I can recognize Lego pieces, but they have an Apple logo just where you would for it, and I can't work out. Did they
had to put it together.
Pieces in half? Yeah. So if they couldn't do that, but yes,
well, it's just all the little bits and pieces are very. It's just fun. This is really cute. They have the little trees indoors, glass windows. I like the idea, but I want to give them a new challenge. Someone needs to build Apple Park out of Lego. The Millennium Falcon of Apple nerd Lego sets. Yes.
Yeah, but I remember I went into an Apple, I went to a Lego store for complicated reasons. No need to go there, but I had to go there, and I went there, and there was the Millennium Falcon, and it was so staggeringly expensive.
For $800.
I mean, all of it was. Yeah. When did Lego get complicated and so expensive?
I feel like it's always has been. We're just realizing it. I've not spent too much time on Lego, but it is a fun set. I think it's funny you mentioned The Simpsons, because I think there is actually an episode that's just about Lisa getting an iPod and Steve Jobs is involved and everything. It's really funny. But yes, the Lego set, I don't know. At the very least, publish the set pieces so we can go and figure it out for ourselves, because this might be a fun project to go and just piece together bit by bit over time, go find the right bits and bobs. I wonder if Apple Park would be possible with it being circular, but there are, elbow pieces and stuff, so I guess eventually you could build a giant saucer, because geometrically it's not that complicated. It is a big donut, so someone could probably figure it out.
You're saying that copyright and things will probably stop it. As I understand it, first, whoever creates this has to get 10,000 people to tell Lego yes, they would buy it, and then Apple will say no. But did you know that Apple stores, you mentioned the trees in Apple stores are patented, or at least Apple, I can't remember now if Apple's been granted the patent or it's just applied for it, but the trees in Apple stores and the layout, they're protected that much. So I don't know how much
patent system
stores
is truly abysmal, is it not?
It's certainly confusing, I'll tell you that. But there we go.
So speaking of, I wanted to bring up Legos because that was cool, but something else from my childhood, because it's definitely in my shopping cart. On September 1st, there will be a Legend of Zelda Lego set for $300, and I think it's going to find its way into my home because this is just awesome. The minifigs alone are worth it. Have you ever owned a Lego set, William? Have you ever messed with any of this?
Back in the day, I remember building a TARDIS police box out of Lego somewhere, but I think I was at an event or something, because I turned around and somebody nicked the roof to put on their car or something. It was a friendly Lego event. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the thing I want, have you seen the Lego typewriter?
Yes. Their mechanical Legos are also amazing. They have like the adult Lego sets that do things, and it's so cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so focus, William, not on Lego. I'm amused that my Lego choice is a typewriter. Your Lego choice is, of course, related to a game. But let's
Lego Insider Podcast.
I said right at the start, yes, that I didn't know whether you'd be coming via your new iPad Pro or... do you remember that you've got this, the Vision Pro? Do you remember ever having one of those?
Well, I'm wearing it, so I hope I remembered it. It's one of those things that, I've always... I had a discussion about this twice, I think, in the last couple of weeks, when we brought it up on the show already, of, iPad Pro versus Vision Pro was a piece I did, and then I did the hands-on with the iPad Pro, and I discussed a little bit in there of just, the Vision Pro is still here, and I'm working out how my workflows are coming together, and I was on the iPad Pro's podcast, which publishes in the next week or so. So go give that a listen when that comes out. That's not going to be in our show notes this week, but we'll get it in there when it appears. Probably next episode. We'll have it. I was going to
ask you about that. I've got to hear that. I like that show. But
but yes, I'm basically just looking at it as Vision Pro is good for focused work and AR VR related capabilities right now, and because I'm writing the review for the iPad, which will be out sometime in the next week or so. We want it to be WWDC. Because I'm writing that, I wanted to focus on iPad. So I'm still not in a regular usage cycle, but we'll see where all that falls down. But I think there's a place for both of them.
But what about, the reason Vision Pro is on my mind this week is actually because, as I understand it, there's a new sizzle reel of exciting, immersive video out. Sizzle reel says to me it's short, and you complained before about a lack of material coming out. Is this long enough and good enough to have changed your mind? And
well, it's still just a trailer. The problem was never, there's never going to be any content on this thing. We know there's content coming. It's the pace that is the problem. And I think maybe Apple's been holding their breath a little bit because they want to get to a global launch and make this stuff, they'll release more content to make it more of a headliner purchase for everyone to be like, this is the only place you can see this. This is the only place you can do that. And the sizzle reel was interesting because... it included most of the same content from the original. All they did was update it. So there's still the stuff from Adventure with the blimps, the underwater stuff with sharks from Wild. Cool. But then they included the newly released parkour stuff in France, which is another episode of Adventure, I believe. we'll see. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. I made the comment in the article, like, being an American, I don't have a lot of interest in soccer. Just, I didn't grow up in that culture. I grew up, caring about football, American football, and maybe a little bit of basketball, baseball, that kind of stuff. Like, that's the side of sports I was in. And then way down the list, soccer was a passing interest. I'd prefer play it than watch it personally. But anyway, actually seeing scenes from a basketball game and scenes from the Super Bowl in Vision Pro and the fully immersive environments, that takes something in my brain that the soccer stuff, I was just kind of like, whatever. And I did say that, and someone commented, it's like, well, Americans like soccer too. It's like, yeah, but generally speaking, it's a global sport. Americans tend to like football more. In any case,
hang on. There's something I know. I actually know a sports fact. Doesn't America have? It's not called the World Cup, but there's something world like that, but only America's in it or something. It's like we have Eurovision for Europe, but it includes the UK and Australia and things like that. Going off on another one here, we were on Safer Ground with Lego. I wrote a story this week.
It's like the World Series of Baseball or something like that.
That's it, the World Series. Thank you, yes. I wrote a story this week based on someone at, which one's MLS? Major League Soccer. Is that soccer? Right. Somebody at that photographed the rigs that Apple was using to create immersive video for it. And it's the first time we've kind of quite clearly seen the cameras and things. So I was really interested in that at the time, but thinking since... I know I don't know anything about sport, but I didn't have the impression that this was a big match. I mean, I can't remember who was playing, but it wasn't the final of anything or it wasn't the start of anything. So it felt like Apple was probably still testing it rather than actually planning to release footage of this one, presumably not unimportant, but not exactly crucial game. Well, by now, shouldn't they be, pumping out actual sports events and things like that? I think
the editing is the problem because we're nowhere near ready for live coverage with this stuff. It's just it being a new medium. And so it's funny. Merlin Mann was making a good point that when the television first came out, there wasn't anything to watch on it. Someone had to go make all the shows and movies. And I think Vision Pro aptly is similar. There's plenty to watch, right? There's plenty of 3D content, 2D content. It's just the immersive video itself, the primary use case of Apple Vision Pro is lacking. And maybe Apple could have pumped that up a little bit ahead of time. But as we saw from these camera rigs, they're very expensive. They actually don't exist in the market. Apple can't even buy them. I'm sure they have some sort of partnership deal with the camera company. But Apple actually has to rent these cameras currently. Oh, right. So there's a lot of things going on here. That and figuring out how to edit it when the user is the camera in control of what they're looking at. How do you put together something? How do you make them not sick by jumping around too much? There's so much that goes into this that they're still figuring it out. Now, I'm sure eventually we'll streamline this and we'll get to the point where it'll be like anything else and you capture the footage, splice it together, and publish it. But we don't have the know-how yet to do it. So that's why in the sizzle reel, we're seeing stuff from the Super Bowl. Obviously, I mean, I knew that Apple would have cameras at the Super Bowl. We just didn't see them really. No one really commented on it. But there's footage from the Super Bowl. And yes, months later, we're seeing it. And I guarantee you there's going to be some sort of short 8-minute, 10-minute, so like documentary, kind of like the soccer one that they did. Fine. Like, I'll watch it. That'll be, just more things to see. It'll be interesting. It'll just be a glimpse of the future. But Apple Vision Pro is very much a device of the future. Even the content is just a preview. And I wanted to bring up content this week because a few things are happening. It's actually kind of a lot has happened at once in terms of Vision Pro. We've got multiple releases happening. Have you seen any of these? Have you kept up with it?
I'm going to say I think they're games, aren't they? So I kind of blanked out.
There's a few games.
I missed? Oh, right.
There's a few games and 2 immersive experiences that have launched since we last talked,
I didn't know
which
about
is
these.
an avalanche in Apple Vision Pro world. Yeah.
Tell me about the immersive ones first.
So
that's anti-game there. I'm sorry, unconscious anti-gaming there, but immersive first because that's obviously the one that's tempting me.
Well, so the same day the sizzle reel dropped, we got the next episode of Adventure. So one episode every 3 months. Put that in your calendar, guys.
Oh,
sure.
Is this the thing where you mentioned parkour? And I'd never heard of that before all of this.
French people jumping across buildings. Yeah.
Okay. But there's
real
another
thing.
term. There's
a sport.
I've seen Americans running across the tops of buildings and things like that. I don't think they used. I mean, that sounds weird. I've seen Americans running across the tops of buildings. I mean, I've seen the sport, I think, covered in America, and people doing crazy leaps. Oh, yeah, and then occasionally you'll see in action films, they've obviously hired somebody who does this because it looks fantastic. But I didn't know it was called parkour, and if I really am excited by it, waiting 3 months to see what happens next doesn't seem ideal. No,
each episode is its own can, so it's not like the next episode is going to be about parkour. The show's called Adventure. The first episode was highlining, so it was this woman who literally goes out in the middle of nowhere by herself and sets up a trapeze to walk over a canyon alone and doesn't die somehow. So that was a fun episode, but I think Adventure so far, both episodes, is about stunning you with the 3D-ness of looking over a cliff or looking over the edge of a building and just seeing the depth of it actually does give you that gut feeling of get away from the edge, you're going to fall. And that's really fun.
So,
go ahead.
I was just thinking, that woman, did she carry a camera on the line across and the extra weight?
So in this case, they did film her, but highlining generally is done, I guess, maybe with a partner. But it seemed to me that this is just a person who literally goes and camps on a summit and does it by themselves, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, with just a film crew beside her. Okay,
it's annoying because
that just seems so dangerous.
They ruined the best moment of the whole episode in the sizzle reel of Adventure of her taking a fall. Of course, she's tethered, so she's fine. But it's just that was such a shocking moment of just seeing her drop and then kind of just sit there like, well, thinking about her life choices that led to that moment.
Do you know, I said this was obviously the one that tempted me, but you say that, and I'm too scared. Tell me about nice, safe games instead. What am I missing out on the games front?
Well, so we have another immersive experience to get through real quick, which actually launches as we speak. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but it is the Marvel. Gosh, words are escaping me. There's two words that go together.
Is it What If by any chance?
Yes.
Right. If? I saw headlines about that, but I'm revealing my ignorance here. Not only games, but I thought it's a Marvel thing, and I just don't happen to be into the Marvel stuff, so it also passed me by. But it's immersive Marvelness.
Yeah, it's not a game. Don't look at it as a video game. It's in the vein of Experience Dinosaurs, which is another Apple thing they released on launch day, which it wasn't part of Apple TV Plus. It's because it's interactive. It's not actually a kind of the difference between a video where you sit and watch and a thing that sees you. In Experience Dinosaurs, the only interactivity really is you can put your finger out and a butterfly lands on it, or the dinosaurs follow you with head tracking, stuff like that. Like they'll look at you. That kind of interactivity. And so What If is the same vein. So it's except in this one, you're a newly recruited member of the secret society Doctor Strange belongs to, and they teach you all the hand gestures to open portals. So they're using the hand tracking really cleverly there and making it part of the canon. And you kind of go on this adventure. There's moments where you're watching, there's moments where you're interacting, but it's mostly a watch and kind of interact thing. It's not really a video game, but this is much longer by far. The Experience Dinosaurs is about 8 minutes. This one is an hour, so big step up in as far as interactive content.
This isn't the first thing Disney's done, is it, for Vision Pro? I remember them being part of the original announcement saying they were going to do all sorts of things, but because I don't have one, I suppose I haven't seen it. They have a good app. Okay.
Yeah, their app has the environments, and there's not much going on there except you can just look around and see Easter eggs while you're watching a movie. Sure, but that Disney and Apple have definitely deeply partnered here. So I'm glad that they're doing something, and I'm glad that Disney's showcasing this. I hope it doesn't stop. I hope that we get, next up we'll get a Star Wars thing. One of the coolest, there's a few really cool Disney Star Wars VR things. Like there's a Darth Vader experience, and there's the actual Disneyland ride that they put into a VR video game. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's one of the ones you have to go through, and I think you get to make it lightsaber and all that stuff. It's this really interactive thing. But they brought the actual VR part of it to VR platforms. Right now, if I want to do it, I can go to my PlayStation VR and run it. So maybe they'll port that to Vision Pro. Like, I feel like this partnership will go deeper. We just got to see more as time goes along. This is still a very new platform.
True. It doesn't feel to me like WWDC is going to be the place that we'll hear more about immersive experiences. So it feels like suddenly stopping the iOS talk to discuss an Apple TV Plus drama or something. It doesn't, right? But they've got to
Vision
do something.
Pro.
True.
And anytime they do talk about tvOS, there was one year where tvOS actually wasn't mentioned one time on stage, which is really funny. But anytime they do talk tvOS, there's sometimes a sizzle reel of here's trailers of shows coming, and that's silly at WWDC. But I feel like with Vision OS 2.0, they're probably going to want to show off, hey, we got these games coming, and this is where we get to games. So there's 3 new games on Apple Vision Pro that are fully qualified real VR games, and like I say that, and I don't mean to be mean to what already exists on Apple Vision Pro, but the only thing we really had up till now was Synth Riders, which was fully immersive as a VR game, and it was a rhythm game, and you kind of move your hands to have these globes follow a track to the rhythm of music, and it was fine, but without any haptic feedback. It kind of just felt like you were just throwing your hands in the air like Kermit the Frog.
Okay. Sorry, that's an image. Yes. Okay.
But it was fine, and it's a very popular game, and I enjoyed it. It's no Beat Saber, but then everything else was mostly these 3D windows of like 2D games that were made 3D-ified. So Crossy Castle honestly worked really well like this because of how it's built. They just did a really good job 3D-ifying that one. But again, it wasn't a fully immersive game. The closest second to it was Fruit Ninja, but it kind of just placed AR objects in your room, and you had to slice fruit with your hands. Like, fine. But now finally, we have a fully immersive set of VR games. The first 2 should be very, very familiar for everyone because they've existed for nearly a decade. Vacation Simulator and Job Simulator.
I'm sorry. Job Simulator doesn't sound very... I mean, I love my work, but...
Oh, no.
I picture you in a cubicle somewhere, and the phone rings. Okay.
Yes. And you answer it, and they tell you to do something. No, it's a beautiful piece of satire. Like, it's like... I think they just saw Office Space and said, we're making that into a video game. You're sitting... Like, there's different modes. There's a restaurant, a grocer, and sitting in an office cubicle. And you're just harassed by these robot computers, and there's like, we have a human employee, and we have to train you up, and they, treat you like an idiot, and you have to go through all these things. But what makes it fun is in other platforms you have controllers that you press a button and your hand grips things and you grab them. But in Vision Pro, the hand tracking is so good, it's just your hands, and you reach out and grab and touch and move things around. You can't see any of the real world. You are fully immersed. So I recommend playing this game at an empty table. Where you're sitting and can't go and break something. Because I definitely reached out and grabbed my iPad accidentally a couple of times sitting at my desk.
So, wait, sorry, can you see your hands as you grab things?
Yes.
Oh, right. So,
are they really they're these little gloves. They're cartoon gloves.
Ah, right. Yeah. Okay. Wow. All right. I mean, there's a faint touch of Severance coming to all of this, but okay. What's the...
There should be a
holiday
or
vacation... What was the other simulator? Vacation Simulator, Holiday.
Yes. So Vacation Simulator is the more recent one. I actually haven't played it, but it's the same kind of idea. You're put into different scenarios, and there's just stuff you can grab and throw and mess with. It's just an interactive sim, but it's very humorous, very silly.
Okay.
And then there's Demio, which is apparently a very popular tabletop-esque game where it's kind of like D&D. You're rolling dice and moving characters and going on this dungeon crawling quest but it's all rendered in a 3D immersive environment, and that sounds interesting. I haven't dived in yet. This is actually where it gets Vision Pro's separating itself as a platform, which is exciting to me. The game costs $40, which is good. More of that, please, because that was one of the biggest concerns with bringing AAA to iPhone is how do we price these? Do it. Mm-hmm. Charge $60 for your $60 game. Make your money because people will be willing to buy it. That's why Assassin's Creed, when it comes out, will cost $30. That's why Death Stranding and Resident Evil are all premium price tags because they're premium games. So I'm happy to see that these games actually cost real game money.
There's a version of chess, isn't there? Something, I don't want to say ordinary, but
Game Room.
Game Room. Okay, have you played chess on the Vision Pro?
Andrew and I, there's actually a video out there if you go to our YouTube channel. Andrew and I played chess in Game Room because that seemed to be the only game working at the time. But that was with spatial personas. And again, this wasn't fully immersed. You're in your own space with a chessboard or Battleship, and we played Battleship together, and that was really fun. Right. You could peek around the board and see the other person's persona sitting there and everything.
Oh, sorry, this reminds me. We did talk about games before because you recommended, was it called Bad Chess from the makers of Good Sudoku?
Yeah, really bad chess.
Yeah, I opened that and I shut it immediately because it's wrong. The boards aren't set up right. It's just wrong. It's wrong.
It's a game of chess, but all pawns. Is that not just chess?
Yes. Well, yes. Okay. Okay. Let's leave Vision Pro behind for a bit because we are in this strange period where the new big thing, the new bright thing is actually the iPad Pro. And a funny thing, well, iPad Air as well, a funny thing happened on the way to the Apple Store. I really, really fancied the iPad Air. I know you've gone the Pro route. It's budget more than anything else, but I don't really need the power of the Pro stuff, even though I have an 11-inch iPad Pro from 2021. But I was thinking I really want an iPad Air, and I actually got sensible and thought, you won't use it enough. Mm-hmm. You're so addicted to your MacBook Pro, don't be silly. But I got out my 11-inch iPad Pro, and in the time since Apple pushed that new iPad out, I have become obsessively using my old iPad like it's a new one for me. I finally caved in and subscribed to Final Cut Pro for the year because I've been editing videos while I've been away doing various things. And Apple Pencil, Final Cut Pro, absolutely gorgeous. I can't get enough of this. Who needs a new iPad? One from 3 years ago. It's brilliant.
Yeah, if you're still on an M1 iPad, there's little chance you'll need any of the new ones. It's just you're buying that display. That's the biggest reason to upgrade. Everything else aside, M4 aside, you're really just paying for that display.
Except I had this thing once where I did eventually a few years ago caved in and bought a Kindle Paperwhite because I was and I spent such a long time. Do I like it more than the iPad? Because actually I think the reading experience on the iPad, much better screen in colour, vastly better. I mean, yes, resolution, but also typography. I think Kindle's quite ugly in comparison, but the Kindle is so small, so handy. Battery lasts, well, not as long as they say, but it lasts. So I've been reading most books on Kindle, but then I wrote an article for AppleInsider in the middle of this iPad Pro obsessiveness I was doing about the iPad Mini. And by the end of it, I convinced myself I really want an iPad Mini. And apparently this would be a ridiculously bad time to buy one because all the rumours are that a new iPad Mini is coming out. I mean, just because it's 3 years since the old one, people think there might be a new one. Do you know about the rumours? And as iPad man, do you put any stock in them?
Well, so the rumor that I shared here is the iPad Mini OLED coming in 2026, which, fine, that'll probably push back a year because it always does. These rumors that go this far out are always iffy. OLED on iPad Mini would be an excellent combination. I'd immediately buy it. I'm in the bag for iPad Mini. I as many gadgets as I have, iPad Mini is the one that I tend to use the most because it's always with me. At least at home. The iPhone, of course, is what I use when I'm not at home. But when I'm at home, I don't walk around with Vision Pro in my head. And the iPad Pro tends to be a work device. I do use it for consumption, and other things. Like I like using emulators and video games and stuff. So it does serve other purposes and go to other rooms in my house, of course. But generally speaking, if I'm just, on the couch, playing a video game, watching TV, I'll reach for the iPad mini to pull up information because it's just a nice big display, but not too big. And I can hold it in my hand and it's not too heavy. It's legible and bright. So I really enjoy my iPad mini 6, and I will buy the iPad mini 7 the minute it comes out. This one's definitely starting to creak a little bit, showing its age, if only in the fact that it's just everything else is so much faster now that the iPad mini just feels downright archaic in certain aspects. The fact that it doesn't have the YouTube decoding engine built into the chipset and certain little things, and the display is ugly compared to the OLEDs of my iPhones and iPads and the mini LED of my MacBook. So it definitely just needs a little touch up. And so the minute the iPad mini 7 gets announced, which should be this year, the OLED thing, that's going to be the iPad mini 8 or whatever. So that's the next generation. So whatever we get this year will probably be a spec bump, but I'm here for it.
So it's not that you've worn out yours, it's everything has left it in the dust after 3 years.
Yeah, it's starting to, I like new things, if anyone hasn't figured that out yet. So there's nothing wrong with my iPad mini. Honestly, if we had to wait till 2026, other than maybe battery concerns, this could probably make it to another 2 years. I wouldn't mind seeing what else is up Apple's sleeve as far as iPad mini. What else are they thinking design-wise? Can it get even thinner and lighter? What are they going to do to it? And I still dream, William, of an iPad mini Pro with all the stops. It would cost $1 million, but it would be beautiful and perfect, and I would love it.
I still remember when this current one came out. It was like things had flipped. A long time ago, the iPad mini was the iPad for people who couldn't afford an iPad. But then, no, that's over. This was a full-blown, very powerful iPad, up there with the rest of them, just smaller. And just smaller was a big thing about it. Now, as it's kind of getting older, and it seems like Apple's concentrating on the Air and the iPad Pro, yeah, I don't know. If you didn't have an iPad mini now, but you knew what you knew, would you buy an iPad mini 6?
I mean, today, no, just because I knew that there was probably one coming within 3 months. I could wait that long. It's just one of those situations where miniaturization, people forget, sometimes costs more, even though it is smaller. You have to cram everything you want into that smaller area. The display and all the parts need to work. The battery needs to last, Apple's rated 10 hours for an iPad. So yes, it is smaller than the 329 iPad. It is smaller than the iPad Air, but it is priced like an iPad Air because it has all the same technology in a smaller package. And sometimes that is actually more expensive. And we're honestly getting a good deal with the iPad mini in its price range for what it does.
I've never thought of small as less because I've always been aware of laptops always used to cost more than desktops because they had to have special parts. They had to be miniature parts, whereas desktops could just plug in parts made for 1,000 different computers. Laptops
batteries were also very expensive.
Oh, yes. Batteries, yeah.
I shared this story in here just because I feel like it's relevant. I believe it's your comparison. Yes, if you could one day just only carry one device and one device only, would it be an iPad mini instead of an iPhone?
Yeah, that was me, and it was born of the obsession with the iPads that seemed to have come over to me. But I think about it so much. The article, it doesn't come down firmly. I mean, it'd be nice if it had said, yes, click here, buy this, you'll be happy. But of course, everybody's different and their needs different. So the truth is, yes, you could replace your iPhone with an iPad mini.
Sure.
And the only thing, strictly speaking, you would miss is cellular phone calls.
Yeah, you would have a phone number.
Still make it. Yeah. So you could still phone people. Yeah, if you buy the cellular version, you can have FaceTime, you have WhatsApp, you have all the voice over
Google
IP
phone
stuff.
Number.
Yes, exactly. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. So, it's a kind of ish, nearly. And similar with photography. I mean, you can take photographs. They're never going to be the same as on even the iPhone 15. So you could do it all.
It's kind of hacky. It's kind of like using an iPad Pro as a Mac replacement, right, William?
That's true, and that's a terrible, terrible thing. I don't know anybody who does that in any way at all.
I think,
right?
For
We're
me,
looking at each other here. Okay.
I think for me, there's a couple of things that would need to happen for me to do this, because I could personally see myself doing this. We discussed the naked robotic core before. For this to actually work, I could honestly see myself one device person, one device, and that be the iPad mini. If it was an iPad Pro inside, so M4, 120 hertz OLED, this beautiful little package, Thunderbolt cable, 8-inch display, but with the iPhone camera on the back.
Right.
And so it would be this absurd Frankenstein. But if that was the case, I could honestly say iPad mini, and that would need to pair with an Apple Watch, of course. So if that was all there, I could honestly probably go all iPad mini, because then the iPad mini would be a tablet in my hands, and then I could take it to my desk and plug it into a Thunderbolt cable, and suddenly it's my desktop. But it's all the same computer, William, and that would be just magical. I don't think Apple could ever get there, and honestly, I don't even know if that I want them to. It's a nice dream, but I think there's some practicality challenges there.
You sound so sure, and yet I know if it happened and 2 months later Apple brought out something else, you'd go by that instead, and then you'd have two devices, and we'd be back where we started. One last thought, the thing that actually, I mean, in my head, I've come down to the fact that the iPhone, well, I have the iPhone 15 Pro, I think that is the better choice right now than an iPad mini, but I used to be I became quite a heavy reader of Apple News Plus on the iPhone. It's practically my primary news source now. But having gone through this iPad renaissance, I am now finding Apple News Plus on the phone a bit irritating. It's somehow I need the larger size screen to just enjoy the news.
It's laid out
forward.
better.
Yes, it is. Although
I think,
we don't get the puzzles that you do in America. UK version doesn't have the crossword.
The word puzzle is my new addiction. I love it. I really do. I didn't think I would like it, but it's so I don't know what it is, but it ticks the right boxes for me.
It is just a Wordle ripoff, though.
No. It's you're given a grid of letters that are just nonsense, and you have to spell words with them.
Oh, okay. That is completely different.
It's like an upside down crossword almost. Like you instead of hints, you're literally given the letters that make up words, and you have to find all the words you can find. And there's usually about 20 different words in the piece. And there's 4 words that use 4 tiles, and that's where the name of the game comes from. Core tiles.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, in that case, that's not the most right I've ever been. Let's go with that. But let's pretend for a second that I was right, because I was building to something there. I was going with the fact that we are about to hit WWDC, and we're going to, as we're going to say in AppleInsider Plus, we're likely to see things being Sherlocked. I was going to go from there into WWDC, and the strangest things I'm hearing coming. All right, you will know this better than me, I know, just from what you said in the past, but this stopped me. There's this idea that we will be able to create our own emojis in iOS 18 or whatever, but emojis are done to a standard. And I know every company implements them differently, but a smiley face is if I send you a smiley face, you get a smiley face, even if your one looks different to mine. So how can I sit here and make up an ever so slightly wry smiling face and send that to you and hope that it will get to you?
Well, this is very different stuff. So I think there might be some complicated language issues happening here. The report comes from Bloomberg. We don't really know exactly the sources or what they actually said, but emoji can mean a lot of things. You're right. And people often confuse emoji for emoticon for stickers, and Apple's very much in the stickers game right now. Stickers is a big part of iMessage. I could see you just... so the idea is you're having a conversation, and you go to the emoji picker, and in the left tile, there instead of the recents, it would have recommended emoji to react with, basically, and it would be generated based on the conversation. Or you could do a search prompt, and when you search, it would give you exactly what you're looking for, or the related emoji that come up that are actual Unicode emoji that would come up for your search. So that's my guess is the implementation. It works. Maybe your emoji might have too many fingers because they're being generated, but I think it's fine. Unicode is just it's this group that comes up with these ideas, but I don't think there's anything illegal about making your own emoji. Apple does it all the time. We have Memoji and Animoji, and maybe the AI stuff could help you.
Oh, I see.
Like imagine if you have a Memoji, right, and you're having a conversation, and it could make different expressions, faces, and arm gestures based on what's happening. Or you could put your Memoji into a meme and have it pointing at a cat and yelling angrily, right? Like, just
okay.
I feel like this is the kind of path they're going down. Now, the little yellow guys, sure, that I don't think Apple wants to undermine the importance of emoji because they use that as a tool to get people to upgrade mid-cycle when there's new emoji on the phone. I'm just not sure how this is going to come out, but I could see both cases happening. I could see the yellow guys getting generated. I could see this being an Animoji thing or a Memoji thing. We'll just have to see what they do. It would probably be limited to iMessage and other Apple-esque things, and you're not going to be able to create an emoji and put it in Slack, for example. So the Unicode would still have a job because, and unless somehow Apple builds this as an API, it would still be exclusionary. Because Android wouldn't have access to these, and they would see question marks, and it would become this whole conversation of, well, you can't see my emoji, so I'm not talking to you, kind of thing.
Okay, solve the green button, blue button stuff, but kick them in the back with emoji stuff. Okay, well, that's a plan. Memoji is the one where it's your face, isn't it?
It's a little character.
Have you created one that actually looks like you?
I have a couple, yes, and you can actually have multiple Memoji, and you can build them based on seasons and stuff. It's funny, actually. I like the idea. I wish the execution was stronger, and maybe this will make it a little better.
Right. I've never managed to get one that looked anything like me. And now suddenly I'm thinking different versions of me in the different seasons. So wearing a coat, wearing a T-shirt, wearing a bathing suit. Let's not go down that route. Okay, I'll leave it where it is. Let me know how it improves. Okay.
It's tough because this is a very stupid problem to have. But as a white guy with a beard and black hair, I look like everyone. So if you remember, well, at least in emoji form, I do have a unique appearance. But if you look at Memoji, you put together the parts and pieces they've given you. Everyone on Earth that's white with a beard and, brown, black hair is going to make the same emoji because you only have so many parts to put together, and you put the glasses on and suddenly everyone looks the same. And that was the trouble because if you remember the trend on social media, everyone changed their icons to their Memoji. And then suddenly all the white guys with beards were identical. On Twitter, they all had this, or whatever. They had all the same faces, and it just immediately broke. And it's just like, no, we can't do this, guys. Stop it. And there's still those people out there who still use Memoji. You're fine. I'm not making fun of you. But there was a moment when it was actually difficult to tell people apart because everyone was using the same white guy emoji. So I would hope that with AI and customization like this, some generative ways of creating new stickers, new characters, that this might open up the door to making truly unique Memoji. Like, no one on Earth could actually make mine because mine is trained on my photos and nobody else has my photos. That kind of idea.
I hear you. You're telling me, William, grow a beard. Got it. Okay. Related to this, I believe, or at least Apple Insider uncovered it in the same tranche of exclusives, and Apple Insider is doing really well, I think, at the moment with exclusives. There's a possibility, at least, that we will be able to change the color of icons on our iPhone and possibly animate them. Now, animation I get because I look at my screen and Apple's clock app has the second hand going, and that's excellent. Nobody else can do that. So being able to do that, great. But am I seriously going to go to the OmniFocus icon and decide instead of purple on black, I want green on yellow? I mean, am I going to?
This is going to be one of those moments where everyone's going to yell, Google did it first. But there's a thing called Material You that came out in 2021 where on Android, you pick a color accent and a couple of things, and it basically paints the entire system with these colors and aesthetics. And when you do that, developers with app icons choose, their base icon design, and then what parts of it become accented. So that way, when you have their icons on the home screen, they get to match your aesthetic, but still be their icon. I think this might fit into that a little bit. It plays into the idea that everyone's doing it anyway, right? If you want a custom phone with a background and icons that match, if you want to make your home screen look like it's out of the Pallet Town in Pokemon or whatever, and have different characters walking around, but each character is an icon. You click and it opens an app, right? People are doing this already, and there is a kind of issue with this because brands want their brand identity. There's a sense of honor in having your brand, your icon, be shown on everyone's home screen, right? Facebook actually, one of their big bragging rights is everyone has that little blue F, at least at one point, not anymore, on their home screen. So what happens when you can just change that at will? Well, you can now with shortcuts, and it requires a little bit of a leap. But I think what this will allow is people to get their customization while the brand is able to offer options without completely removing the branding from it, right? So I think both sides will exist, and maybe Apple is going to make customizing even more useful and even easier on iPhone. I hope there's a whole customization mode beyond wiggle mode. And this personally to me sounds exciting. This is, I think, even a step further than Material You that Google is doing, and further cements the idea that I've been promoting for a while now, is that iPhone is more customizable than ever, than even Android at this point.
I suppose over the years I have spent an inordinate amount of time fiddling with my iPhone home screens and rearranging them and just, finding the perfect selection of apps. So I shouldn't knock anybody going further and altering the colour. It just somehow it reminds me of people whose bookshelves are arranged by colour instead of author or topic or something. And it's just,
right.
Okay. But
or their bookshelves are just a bunch of fake books with different spine colors, so they can just have it artistically laid out.
It's just wrong. So wrong. But you said something there about more customization, more than just the wriggle thing or the wiggle bit. I have one page that has like a smart stack on it. In fact, it's the one you said about just let Siri suggestions come up. You actually said, William, put it on your front page, you'll be fine. And I didn't trust you. I put it on a second or third page, whatever it was. And now, actually, I get confused because on that page, when I turn to that page, it doesn't look like one section of suggestions. It looks like just 8 icons that happen to be duplicated in there and aren't always the same. But you're right that the set is generally what I'm going for. So maybe I should be more into this. Maybe I should be more into widgets. I've started putting some widgets on. What's the name of the screen when you slide your finger from the left of your iPhone to the right? And there's that screen that appears that has little widget rooms on it. I've put a couple of things on there.
The Today View.
Today View, thank you. But even now, having positively chosen to put some stuff there, I forget that it's there, and I just carry on digging through things. Are you a big customizer?
Oh yeah, I mean, I wrote the guide. We keep meaning to update it, but time has gone away from us. But I wrote it for iOS 16, and not enough has changed since then. So technically speaking, that one's still pretty relevant. iOS 17 added interactive widgets, but that doesn't change how you customize your phone. It just changes what happens when you add a widget to your home screen. So we'll get it in show notes, but the iOS 16 guide was pretty comprehensive, and I followed this. I have a home screen for every focus group that I have. So my work, gaming, personal, sleep, reading, all of these different focuses have different home screens, wallpapers, lock screen widgets, different contact filters on who can get through to me, different Safari browsing modes where everything has its own group tab groups and profiles. All of it controlled by focus. And this is what I was wanting to get at is I could hear people yelling through the internet. that is why I believe iPhone is more customizable and more personal than Android now, because there's nothing like that on Android. I can make my phone become whatever it is given the context based on focus, and that's the same for iPad as well because it has the same modes. I find that just fascinating, and to provide even more customization options with app icons, like not only will you be able to change the icons on your home screen with a shortcut, sure, but now with, like you said, the Siri widget, the suggested icons will be custom icons too because of that. So now you can have Siri suggest apps and have it still match the aesthetic of whatever focus mode you're in. And then when you change focus modes, maybe you could have a different accent color for every focus, right? That's the stuff I'm talking about. It's unlimited customization to the point of ridiculousness. And on top of that, you have now a action button that you can customize. So I will hold this ground of, yeah, you can put a launcher that acts as a roller coaster every time you swipe between pages, and then you don't know what UI flip is going to happen the next time you swipe between app pages. Sure, Android has launchers and these weird things that you can literally break down the operating system and rebuild it from the ground up. That's a kind of customization on its own, but it's kind of like playing with Tinker Toys. It doesn't serve a purpose. It's just, it looks cool. I get it. The moving wallpapers on Android is interesting. I've seen people do some fun stuff with that. I've seen some fun launchers. That it's not to say that those are bad or technically worse. They're just different. And I think Apple's approach is just better for productivity, for personalization. It truly makes the device yours because it's, when you're at home, you get your home phone. When you're at work, you get your work phone. When you're working out, you get the widgets and things that you need to present the information that you want. It's just that good, and it's all just automatic and smart. And I'm not seeing anyone else do anything like that. So the more that they can add to this customization stuff, the better it's going to be.
Doesn't and the big thing about customization iPhone, I thought, was that the iPhone, no matter what else it does, you're stuck with the grid that it's always had. Does Android, right? But can an Android user just drag an app, I don't know, 2 pixels to the left if they're in a bad mood or something? Or do they also stuck with the grid?
That's actually part of the rumor, is that Apple will free us from the grid and allow people to freely place icons and widgets to a limit. I'm sure you can't overlap items like you can on Android. You can actually overlap widgets and icons. Android is just free for all, and that's fine. I think that, but that's where the confusion comes in. That I think people see the free for all and then say, no, that's more customizable. It's more infinitely optionable. But how useful are the infinite number of options? That's the point I'm trying to make here. Apple's customization not only is customizable, but it's useful. It serves a purpose. And I think that's the difference I'm trying to make here.
I'm suddenly picturing what they do on the Mac with widgets there, where the first one, place it wherever you like, but the second one, it'll just try to nudge you into a neat arrangement around it, an aesthetically perfect one. But overlapping, that's ridiculous. I mean, I can just see hours.
Doesn't make any sense.
No, I want that one, not that one. Yes. Okay. So what would be that?
I remember making the argument, and it was kind of silly at the time because a lot of people made this argument that it's I guess a maturity level thing. It's just kind of a silly claim to make, but I remember making the claim. I was much younger at the time, of Android felt like a playroom filled with toys where I could just bash things together to see what happens because it was fun, and that was true. It's a fun playground. You could go do whatever you want to in and see what happens. And sometimes your play would break things because Android let you break things, whereas Apple is and increasingly so. You're getting a lot of the same toys, but they're organized into bins, and you can only take one toy out at a time, and it's very clean, and it's very just well thought out, and you're being supervised and making sure that nothing you can do on Apple's customization will break iPhone. And because of that, like, you can go in as much detail as you want, make it as personal as you want. I don't know if that still applies. It's Apple is increasingly going the Android route, but one thing is for sure, and it's kind of like Moore's law. It's an idea I had a long time ago. It was an original idea, but it's an idea that I at least heard echoed was Google started out open and Apple started out closed, and both were wrong. And they're slowly meeting in the middle and passing each other. So we're getting to the point now where Google is getting as close as Apple, but while Apple is getting as open as Google in the way that it allows users to make decisions. And I find that very fascinating. But because Apple started from secure and went to open, they're doing it in a way that's safer for the users and for their devices. Whereas Google is trying to kill all the bugs and monsters on the way that they've allowed in by being too open from the start. So for me, I prefer the closed to open method. But some people would say that's too restrictive, and they would prefer the open to closed method. So I think that's just another Apple versus Android conversation.
The thing is, of course, all of this is moot, really, isn't it? Because WWDC, iOS 18, ChatGPT will just say to the iPhone, sort yourself out in some way that's useful, and it will go do it for us. That's it. The end of customization. Yeah? Yeah. No?
Honestly, yes and no, William. I think there's something to that though. Imagine just saying, "Hey, whatever GPT nonsense." We'll get to that in a second. Take everything you know about me, how I use my phone, what apps I have downloaded, and create the perfect home screen. And then just to give me a baseline, and it would just, here's these widgets that would make sense for you with buttons that do these things that you're doing constantly throughout the day. But now I've added the button to the home screen, so you don't even have to open the app. Let me make a shortcut for you and put it on the home screen that does this thing. And, kind of just offer you a baseline. And then you go in and be like, well, you got this wrong, but it was close enough. Or I'm going to move this here, or add this thing here. I think that would be really interesting. I don't know if Apple's going to go that far now, but I could see that being an iOS 19 option because Apple's sticking mostly to on-device models. Apple wants to keep things private and secure. This is the closed to open method. So they're starting closed with AI. It's all on-device. It's all local and private. It's going to learn from your information but not share it with anyone. And that's the complete opposite of what Google and Microsoft is doing, where they're watching everything you do, sending it to the cloud, and then giving you answers. But Apple actually might have a solution for that as well.
As we record this, it's only believed that Apple and OpenAI have got together, that's been a done thing. By the time this even goes out, that might have changed. But if it is true and we get to WWDC and it's announced, do you think, let's go slightly different tack. Is that going to be the only AI partnership? So Apple will really have kind of seeded AI to, no, hang on, seed is a difficult word. I meant CECED, not SEEDED. Seeded control of AI to OpenAI for it, to let them sort things out.
This is very complicated. So all we know is at first Apple was in talks with Google for Gemini and OpenAI for ChatGPT over something. We didn't know where the conversation was leading or what deal they were trying to make, except that it was going to be part of iOS 18. And the assumption was that Apple was trying to license these things to be used as part of the ecosystem, kind of like how Apple allows Google to be a significant part of iOS, where if you ask Siri a query, it'll search Google with a private identifier. Even if you set your Safari browsing to DuckDuckGo, Siri still uses Google. That's just part of how Siri works. But it's private, and honestly, you don't even know that it's doing it. It presents the information in a way that suggests Siri found this. But so the conversation would be, all right, Apple didn't make ChatGPT because they don't have a server-side component yet. They could possibly in the future. And a rumor came out as we recorded yesterday saying that OpenAI closed that deal with Apple. And still don't know what the deal is, but I understand your question, William. Does that mean they're the exclusive GPT AI bot server-side guy that when you ask Siri, that Siri, like instead of Google, Ask GPT and returns queries that way. I don't know the answer, but there are rumors that Apple is working on an AI app store. So in that case, Apple would need partnerships with everyone. So maybe they close the deal with OpenAI, and they're still in discussions with Google, right, for Gemini, and they're still in discussions with Adobe for their platform. And they could be bringing in multiple AIs into an app store where people can go and select which AI works with which part of the operating system and how they want to integrate that, or none at all, because you only want closed down privacy. So that could be the move. I don't think whatever Apple does do, I don't think it's going to be mandatory, and I think it's going to be very much, hey, this exists as an option, do you want it, kind of thing. We'll see.
I think that's the point to end, especially because I'm very keen to get onto our disagreement in App Insider Plus in a moment. But how about this? Let's say anyone, for perhaps at Apple, Tim Cook, chooses to listen this week and thinks, now I've got to put them straight. How would Tim Cook contact you?
Well, I am on Mastodon actively. You can always find me there. You can send me an email through the email button at the top of any article that I've written. So email is a good way to get a hold of me, to give me anonymous information, tips, or if you want to just comment on the podcast and tell us how much you're enjoying the show. Of course, we also love a review on the podcast app if you can.
Oh, that'd be good. Yes. Tim, get your people to do a review when they contact my people.
Could you imagine
we'll sort something else out? Yes.
Tim at apple.com reviews on Apple Podcasts? That'd be really funny.
I wonder what he does. We did learn recently what Eddie Q listens to. He listens to Acquired, that business. I actually found it a little bit tedious was listening to it. Once it got going, it took so many minutes to get going. Mind you, people have said that about me. I should shut up. How about I shut up then? One other thing before we go into Apple Insider Plus for subscribers, and if you're not a subscriber, please do join us either through Patreon or through Apple Podcasts. You'd be most welcome for it. And we'd also particularly, although we're going to rabbit on today about this topic that's on our minds, we want to know what's on your minds too, and we can talk about that. But there is also HomeKit Insider every Monday, and you might well recognise one of the voices on it. Because, Wes, have you recorded the next HomeKit Insider yet? Do you know what you're going to be covering in next week's edition?
We record actually after this show. So we record this traditionally on Thursday, and Andrew and I usually get together on Friday. And if you do go to the HomeKit Insider, you might notice that it's been... I've been on and off more lately. It was because we've been trying to get different guests on. So we had a guest last week. The CEO of Ecobee was on to talk about HomeKit stuff. And otherwise, lining up mine and Andrew's schedule is actually kind of complicated. He has that kid now, adorable. But it has turned into some shows being just Andrew talking to the camera, which is fine. But I'm on when I can, and you can always find me there. And that's another fun show that we do.
I mean, I'm going to sound so rude because I've already said that about the interview on last week's one. I said that was good. Good that you weren't there. I meant it was a good interview for it. But I'm also thinking now that thing of when a podcast is just one person, sometimes I really like it. It's just you and the one listener having a gas. I like that. But that's not to mean I don't actually really look forward to talk with you. And I'm going to look forward to you even more in a few moments with Apple Insider Plus. But enough plugging of Apple Insider Plus. Thank you very much for listening. Join us next week when we are an even closer inch away from WWDC. And of course, we'll tell you what Tim Cook's people have informed us about in the week. Thanks for listening. See you then.